Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, April 8th, and you're listening to episode 151 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice already, but I am absolutely sidelined sick with the flu. My entire household is sick with the flu as well. It has taken me 25 minutes of recording just to get this first 30 seconds recorded because I am coughing and having to constantly pause my recording to get this information across to you. So I'm going to apologize in advance if this is a shorter show than usual. Unfortunately, my voice can only do so much. I mean, just listen to me. I sound like shit. I feel like shit, too. So much so that I have not played Planetside 2 at all this week. I logged in on Tuesday, and I have been sick since Tuesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Today's Sunday. It didn't help that on Wednesday. No, God, I don't even know what day it is anymore. It doesn't help that on Friday I ill-advisedly, I don't know if that's a word or not, but it is now, decided to go to PAX East. I had a pass, and I probably should have stayed home. But obviously PAX only comes around once a year. Normally I would do a full PAX show, PAX East themed show, but I'm not going to do that this week, obviously because of my voice. And in all honesty, I was actually pretty disappointed with PAX East this year. It didn't have any huge AAA titles that I tested or anything like that. I didn't spend a lot of money there, which is odd because I usually buy a lot of things at PAX, and I didn't come home with a lot of promos or anything like that either. It was an odd year at PAX East this year. So we're just going to leave it at that and move on to what's actually going on. And like I said, I have not played Planetside 2 since Tuesday. I have not ASP'd my character yet. I think after I'm done recording, I'm going to log in and at least do the ASP on my NC character just so that I can say I've done it. Probably use the cover image for that as well. But I know a lot of you guys out there are ASPing like crazy, and I've heard from a lot of you that you're playing the hell out of it right now and stuff like that. So without further ado, like I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to go today before I completely lose my voice. I do have a cup of hot tea here with honey, so maybe that will help. But what's in store for this week's show? Well, first, the April 2nd PTS update. I'm going to briefly go into that. And then I'm going to talk about the April 5th PC game update. That's obviously the big thing that dropped this week with ASP and other stuff. Sorry, PS4, ASP hasn't come your way yet, but I'm sure it will soon. After that, I want to talk about the ASP poll put together by Arkler. And then finish off the show by talking about some Cone of Fire Bloom oddities that have some veterans perplexed. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. All right, like I said, first up this week, the April 2nd PTS update, which obviously had some slight changes to the ASP program. Like with that build, they removed the Infiltrator's carbine access, the Heavy Assault's LMG secondaries. It did give Heavy Assault's access to the Reserve Hardlight Barrier, which I'll talk about in a second. And they also fixed some bugs regarding the ASP tokens and things like that. So that new thing, the Reserve Hardlight Barrier, is a new utility item for engineers, and obviously Heavy Assaults can get it as well. It works similar to the standard Hardlight Barrier. You can only carry 2 of them, though, before needing to resupply, and they cost 15 nanites apiece. And the standard Hardlight Barrier can be placed in pretty close proximity to the reserve one, and both can be out at once. So it brings some interesting gameplay. Granted, I've seen some pictures. of people completely blocking doors with them by putting the main hard light barrier right in front of the door, and then stacking the reserve hard light barrier on top of it at like a 90-degree angle. So they kind of, if you're looking straight down on it, it looks like a cross or an X. And that's completely blocking doors to stop people from getting through them. So I would imagine that the reserve hard light barrier is most likely going to get nerfed or changed as a result of this before too long. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see something as early as this week, not allowing them to be stacked on top of each other. I'm assuming that is a bug currently. They also added some other construction things like the Painspire's particle effects. They've updated those. They changed the structure shield module's overcharge ability. It now activates in 5 seconds compared to 15 seconds, but they increased the cooldown by 10 seconds, now up to 40 seconds to compensate for that. It also now affects pillboxes, bunkers, towers, sunder garages, and vehicle gate shields. Repair modules, though, will no longer heal walls with overcharge shield active, but they can still be repaired by other sources, and the repair module should no longer cause players to shout out for repairs. That was just a silly bug. That's the April 2nd PTS update in a nutshell. Let's get to the real meat of this week's show. And that real meat, obviously, is the April 5th PC game update, which is being dubbed the Advanced Specialization Update. So I was extremely surprised to hear that this was coming to live so fast. We hadn't even heard of this thing basically a week ago, and now it's already on live. I mean, 2 weeks maybe? Let's see. Yeah, they announced what ASP was on March 28th, and then it went live on April 5th. So, obviously, if you're doing your math, that is a week and 1 day later. That's a little fast. Kind of not what I expected them to do in regards to that, but clearly they must have felt that it was in a good enough state at that particular stage to have it go live. And so, obviously, ASP is now live. If you're confused what ASP is because you didn't listen to last week's show, if you want to join ASP, first, your character has to be battle rank 100 or higher. You can opt into the ASP by visiting your main character page. You can click a button to join it. Once you join the ASP, your battle rank is reset to 1, and you can further rank up to battle rank 100. It caps out at battle rank 100. This new prestige of battle rank 100 cannot be reset more than once, so basically you can just go to 100 and that's it. You're going to retain all your existing certification and unlocks. You're going to gain a new title and a new rank icon. And at BR1, which is where you start, BR 25, 50, 75, and 100, you will earn an ASP token. And you can spend your ASP tokens to unlock new class, permissions, and benefits. So if you're doing the napkin math there, you're noting that you can never have more than 5 ASP tokens, at least with the way this system is currently set up. There's no one knows except for the devs whether they're going to allow you to do this a second time or a third time, a couple years down the road. No one really knows at this point what it's going to be. Now, I went through all the unlocks last week, but I'm just going to fire through them real quick right now. There's universal ones, which give you sidearm primaries, universal smoke grenade access, universal decoy grenade access, light ground discount, ground transport discount, combat armor discount, light air discount, and heavy air discount. All those ground and transport discount ones give you discounts on the actual purchase of them. They're all 20% off except for flashes, which is at 50% off. That's in the light ground discount one. Engineers, you can unlock shotgun secondary, LMG access, assault rifle access, AV grenade access, and EMP grenade access. Light assaults can unlock SMG secondaries and concussion grenade access. Heavy assaults can get the reserve hard light barrier access, the flash grenade access, and the heavy weapon secondary. One thing I do want to say is on your heavy assault character, you apparently do have the ability to unlock the reserve hard light barrier and rank it up on your heavy assault. but not actually have access to it until you've used an ASP point on it. So just be careful when you're in your heavy assault, dropping points into that, because you don't actually have it until you spend an ASP point on it. Infiltrators, probably the shaftedest group. Shaftedest? That's a new word today. Shaftedest group in the game right now, except for Maxes who didn't get anything. But infiltrators get sticky grenade access and flash grenade access. And I say shaftedest, but sticky grenade access on infiltrators is probably one of the most awesome things that I can think about in game. I could just imagine being a infiltrator sitting in the corner of a room in deep cloak, nobody seeing them on a point hold and something like that, and having the entire other team, rush in there, take the point, hold on to it, and one infiltrator uncloak, drop a sticky grenade on somebody, and take out half the room. That just seems like very awesome gameplay for me. So that's definitely one I'm going to be unlocking eventually. Finally, combat medics, battle rifle secondary, carbine access, and concussion grenade access. So there's all the ASP unlocks that you can currently get. And again, can't have more than 5. So as of right now, there's no reset for them, so use your points wisely. Moving along to UI changes, they add some event alerts to the game. So these are the mini alerts that have been teased and talked about a few times. Any non-meltdown alert is going to be shown as a quote-unquote event. For the time being, the only one in this category is the warp gate stabilization alerts. So watch for those. But we did get a tweet from Rel this week that showed that one of these mini non-meltdown alerts that you're going to get is the capture all of a tech plant on a continent. Everybody remembers those. We had the tech plant ones. We had the biolab ones. A lot of people liked those. I liked those, so I'm kind of happy to see those might be coming back to the game as well. Next, they made changes to the squad browser. It's basically reformatted for better viewing. Leader's name is now first. Number of slots next. The distance and cohesion are after that. And then the description is now last. And the join button is moved all the way over to the right-hand side. Next, infantry adjustments are out there. Engineers, that reserve hard light barrier has been added. I talked about that last topic. Next, all the pistol changes that I talked about last week. The object was to keep them more desirable in the secondary weapon slots. All the buffs that the weapons got were to focus on spammability from the hip, not when ADSing. Some other pistols received some other balances that helped solidify a niche or to differentiate them from alternatives. Really, the only one I want to talk about is the Commissioner, because that's really the one most people use. And the Commissioner got a straight-up nerf, whereas everybody else got a bit of a buff. The Commissioner's equip time went from 250 milliseconds to 450 milliseconds, so it takes almost twice as long for you to pull out and use your Commissioner as it did in the past. So you might be tempted. I know I am. Well, I don't use the Commissioner at all since I have the Derringer pistol. You might be tempted to play around with a lot of these other pistols now that the Commissioner has had such a huge nerf done to it. And if you in particular have found a pistol that you like better, definitely let me know. After that, again, I'm not going to go through all these pistols. I can't do it with my voice. I'll just die. And you guys don't want me to die, I hope. And I'm almost out of tea too, so this is not boding well. Next, though, vehicle adjustments. Galaxy had its resistance type to flak changed. So what the goal here is to increase the kill time from dual burster max. I think it needed it on the Galaxy personally. They need to live a little bit longer. Liberator also had their bottom armor reduced, but their resistance type to flak also made better. We talked about that last week's show also. Valkyrie also got its resistance to flak reduced a little bit. And the reason for that is, as I said, Valkyrie is most prone to having its belly facing whatever's hitting it, so it needed a little bit of a breather with the amount of damage it was taking from flak. There were also a bunch of miscellaneous changes, fixes, and other additions to the game. Nothing huge or really important out there. I mean, I guess a lot of people are excited that the Bastion Fleet Carrier's new model has some collision mesh associated with it. So try and get up on that again. Other than that, like I said, really no huge things for miscellaneous changes, fixes, and additions. Obviously, ASP is the biggest thing in this particular patch, and the one thing everybody's absolutely dying for. I do hope that you PS4 folks, that this comes to you ASAP. I know that's funny, ASP ASAP, but I do hope that you guys get it sooner rather than later. But with that, before I die here, let's move on to our third topic this week. So third topic this week is the results of the poll that Arkler had put out asking what people were going to spend their first 5 ASP points on. He openly admits that it's not a perfect survey, but let's be honest, it does give a very good picture about what people consider are the better perks and the ones that people are most likely going to avoid unlocking. When we look at what people are going to spend their first ASP point on, overwhelmingly, well, not overwhelmingly, I guess the number one is heavy weapon secondary for their heavy assault characters. So that means you're going to get a lot of heavy assaults with LMGs in the main slot, and then either your jackhammer, your mini chain gun, or your lasher in the secondary spot. I can really see a good build on my Vanu character with any LMG in the first spot and the lasher in the second spot. I mean, you guys know how much I love the lasher. This will certainly give me more reason than before to get my Vanu character up to BR 100. I think I'm at 76 right now. I have not focused on him that much, so that's why I'm not where I am. Now, again, that was number one, but Arkler also broke this down by class. Obviously, engineer, universal, heavy assault, light assault, combat medic, or infiltrator. He totaled those up as well, which is awesome. He also added in a will wait category because some people said that they're going to wait to spend their points for a little while. In fact, will wait was the 6th most voted for on just your first point, which is very interesting. That means that a good number of people, it's about 10% of the population said that they're going to wait and not spend their first point. And you've got to have some real good willpower to do that, in my opinion. Now, which class are the majority of people going to be spending ASP points on? Far and away engineer. 32% of people said they're going to be spending on either the assault rifle access for engineers, the shotgun secondary for engineers, or the LMG access for engineers. AV grenades and EMP grenades were way down at the bottom because obviously engineers have enough ways to deal with vehicles and they don't really need EMP grenades that much. But I play engineer an awful lot, so I can certainly feel what these guys are saying. I can see an awesome build with a LMG in the main slot, shotgun in the secondary slot, and being able to handle all ranges on an engineer. I certainly feel pretty agreeable to what everybody else was saying on this. Now, going through the other 4 points, because obviously there's 5, he broke down he just did an overall throughout all 5 of the points, what people might be spending them on. He calls it his summary report. And it basically just shows you how many times each perk was chosen out of the 5 points you can spend currently. And he also left the will wait section in there also. Looking at it, the number one perk that people are going to buy within their 5 ASP points is the light assault SMG secondaries, which kind of surprised me. I mean, light assaults obviously get SMGs in their primaries. I don't know that they necessarily needed them in their secondary slot, but having the ability to run 2 SMGs and not run an ammo is probably the main reason to do something like that. So I can certainly understand it. Second, heavy assault, heavy weapon secondary. It's one of the biggest ones. Shotgun secondary on the engineer, assault rifle access on the engineer, and rounding out the top 5 was combat armor discount under the universal category. Arkler, first off, if you're listening to this week's show, thank you for doing this because I think this is good data that people can see. It's not forcing me into any particular niche or way that I feel like I have to spend things on, but it's interesting for me at least to see what people are choosing. Like, I know that I can expect if I'm going up against light assaults that I have a very good chance that they're going to be using 2 SMGs. Same thing if I'm fighting heavy assaults, that I have a good possibility that I'm going to be running into people with either a jackhammer, a mini chain gun, or a lasher in their secondary spot. And I mean, just thinking, I don't know if I want to run into a TR player who just, dumps an entire magazine of the Butcher into me and then switches to a mini chain gun. It might be disgusting, especially when I talk about the next topic. So, like I said, I need to log in and ASP myself and then make a decision from there. I haven't played Engineer since I finished off the Araxium armor for the Engineer, but Engineer has always been my favorite class in game, and I think I may have to think about spending some ASP points on it. So I'm going to include a link to this in case you guys haven't seen it in the show notes. Feel free to pop into it and take a look at it and say thank you to Arkler as well for compiling this, and also thank you to everybody who took this survey to get this kind of information. It's interesting information. That's what I'm going to say. Now, fifth and final topic this week before I jump into some quick email this week is a Reddit post that was put together by Lex. I don't know if any of you guys follow him on Twitter or if you follow him on Twitch. He's someone that I do because he's someone that, while I don't always agree with everything that he says, and sometimes I do think that he's a little blunt when he talks to the developers of Planetside 2, I respect what he says because he's a longtime player of the game. And more than that, he's a highly skilled player of Planetside 2. If I'm doing something wrong in the game, I would be quick to hop into his channel and watch him play for a while to kind of get a better idea of what he does within the game itself. Because again, he is a very good player in Planetside 2. I would consider him far and above what I consider myself as a player within Planetside 2. So if he says that there is a problem with Cone of Fire Bloom on multiple weapons within the game itself, then I take it with a grain of salt. I've been watching all the videos I'll include a link to his Reddit post about it, and you guys can go in and look at the videos yourself and make your own opinion regarding them. But when someone's as good a player as Lex is, and he's able to take down 3 people with an MSWR in particular before, and maybe these are just target dummies, whatever. If he can get all 3 of them and kill all 3 of them by just holding down the trigger and not bursting, because you need to take a step back and understand how good players play Planetside 2. They burst constantly. They don't hold down mouse 1. Because when you burst and you fire an 8 or some odd number of rounds, you're much better able to deal with any cone of fire issues, and you're also able to deal with any recoil in any direction with the gun itself. Because obviously, once you let go of the mouse, it's all going to reset itself. So, if he's experiencing cone of fire, and obviously he wouldn't test this prior to any recent patches coming out, because the way he plays the game is to not hold down mouse 1. I'm different. I'm a horrible player at Planetside 2, and I admit that openly. I find myself holding down mouse 1 constantly. So maybe if, Lex, you're looking for some specific bad gameplay video, just go to my Twitch channel and watch some of my recent VODs. You can see somebody who's holding down mouse 1. And get a better idea if it's me, or a better idea exactly what's going on with the game itself. But again, Lex specifically asked Ral and any other devs at Planetside 2 for more information regarding this, any information. And Ral was quick to say that no, nothing has changed. And let me find his actual response, because he kind of called Lex on the carpet for it as well. And again, I do think sometimes Lex is a little abrasive in his criticism, but that's just the way he is, and I understand that, and I don't have a problem with it. So he did get a response from Rel, and Rel says the cone of fire bloom on the weapons seem to be working as it always has, and he provides a quick Giphy Cat video of a little, I guess, a tool that the devs have, which puts a little globe on their screen, and when they are shooting, it expands so they can see what the cone of fire actually looks like. He says that it's possible some of the recoil mechanics have changed. They were working on them while developing the promise, but that was likely to have surfaced back when those weapons were released. And it's sorry about that. I've been getting most of those off the show. He's saying that it's not recoil specific, and that nothing has changed really with the cone of fire bloom in the game itself. Rel also says that he uses the carve and the butcher for a fair amount, and they seem the same to me as they always have. He asked people to send in footage comparing older footage of the same weapon in a similar environment, then they can investigate further. But as it stands right now, there's no evidence pointing to anything having changed. Going back to what people have written here, though, a lot of veteran players now are writing that these weapons, especially TR weapons for a lot of people, like the T9 Carve, the TMG50, the Track 5, their cone of fire bloom feels completely different to these players. And so more than anything, I just want to bring this to the greater community's attention, because if you have anything to help by showing, giving any information to Lex, bringing any information to the devs to kind of point this out, I don't think that Planetside 2 is a better game by removing or by having a cone of fire bloom bug on some of these TR weapons, or it's not even just TR weapons. People are reporting this on a lot of different ones. I don't think it's good for the game to have that some sort of bug like that in games. So, if anything, this is just a call to the community to give Lex a hand on this, give the devs a hand on this, to provide any other information. And with that, I'm going to move on to housekeeping this week. And I'm going to just use this section for a quick apology, too, before I do that, because I know that Sergeant Mile, you sent me the information saying, please talk about Planetside Battles. I could not watch the Planetside Battles event because I had taken my daughter for a college visit that morning, which I probably shouldn't have done either, being as sick as I am, and I was dead to the world after that college visit. So I did not watch the Planetside Battles event, and I apologize, Sergeant Mile, because I said I would, and I said I would talk about it in this week's show. So take this as my recommendation for all of you who have never watched a Planetside Battles event before, to go out and watch the most recent one. I hear it was a very fun event. Again, I did not get a chance to watch it. Sergeant Mile, I apologize. I also apologize because Stan asked me to talk about Kinesthetic's post about the Planetside-inspired electronic album that was released last week. I listened to a little bit of it. I didn't have a chance to pull any of it to play on this week's show or anything like that. So what I am going to do, though, is make sure to put a link to this as well, because I do think Kinesthetics did a lot of work on this. It's some interesting stuff. It's some cool stuff. And I wish I had half or even 1% of the amount of skill that he does producing music like that. My hat is off. And again, the least I can do is just provide a link to it. But like I said, I need to move into housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
And housekeeping. Goddamn, if Louis didn't send me a freaking novel that I have to read on this week's show. So I wasn't sick when you sent me this, Louis, and I was excited about it, but here goes. Louis wrote, "Hey, Mark, haven't mailed the show in a while, so I thought I would send you my thoughts on the ASP system. The idea of it is a no-brainer, and honestly should have been put in the game over BR120 increase. Being a guy who has pretty much stuck to one character since launch, I selfishly wish the ASP was retroactive. They have an opportunity here to have players display their actual rank based on their actual score. However, the fact that everyone is going to start out at 0 sounds pretty fun too, so I'm not raging over it at all. I do think they are handing out too much too soon. 5 ASP points for one prestige level seems pretty high. They could have easily stretched this out over 3 to 5 prestige levels, handing out only 2 ASP points per level, and nobody would have known the difference. Another problem is the rewards are not balanced at all. There will be rewards in there that almost everyone will get and rewards that almost nobody will get. They could have handed out 10 ASP points and had the benefit cost of 3 to 5 ASP points depending on the value. It would have been a lot like Planetside 1's cert spending, where you had to balance what you spend, maybe a couple major ones and one minor one with those couple ASP points you had left over. There would have been a lot more spent on respecs that way as well. Either way, I'm happy to see the ASP system come into the game. Without it being retroactive, I'm not looking at it as a prestige system. I'm almost looking at it like the Diablo system, season system. Everyone will start at 0 and will race to 100 all over again. Then, hopefully, they'll do it all over again with another set of rewards and upgrades. Thanks for the updates and entertainment, Derringer. Still listening every week and still popping heads in the game almost every day. Louis. Louis, thank you for the email. Yeah, you haven't emailed in a while, but Louis and I chat more often than not outside of the game. So, and I disagree with you. I understand what you're saying about you kind of wish it was retroactive, because everybody who remembers when they did the BR 100 and they moved beyond BR 100 to 120, they let a lot of that retroactive XP go into that BR 120 run, and I hated that. So I'm very happy that they're not doing that here as well, and I'm glad Louis isn't too unhappy about it as well. I do also agree with you, Louis, that 5 points, they could have really stretched this out and said you get 1 point when you start, 1 point at 50, 1 point at 100, and then do it all over again. The next one starts at 50 and then at 100, and there's your 5 points. But you could keep going from there, and you'd still have people like really hustling their asses off to try and get to BR 50 and BR 100 just to unlock those extra prestige stuff, and it would make it last a lot longer. Beyond that, though, I do agree with your cert spending comment as well. For those of you that don't remember Planetside 1, you actually got a set number of certs to spend based on what your battle rank was. And each skill that you wanted cost a certain number of cert points. So, for example, if you wanted to, there were no heavy assaults, there were no engineers, there were no things like that. You actually had to cert in that suit. So you spent some points on the suit, and then you spent some points on the guns, and then you spend some points on the abilities and things like that. What Louis is trying to say in his email here is that they could have done something similar to that, maybe giving you 5 ASP points per, and then depending on what you get, each thing costs a number of points. So like say, if you wanted to unlock the LMGs for, the heavy weapon secondary for heavy assaults, that could cost you 4 ASP points. And then you'd have 1 ASP point left over, and maybe you could unlock universal decoy grenades with that or something like that. Or not, or there could be something big that could cost like 10 prestige points. So you'd have to make 2 levels worth of ASP just to unlock something, that the devs feel is a little more powerful than something else. So I do kind of feel like they missed out on something like that as well. But I'm on board with you, Louis, that I think the ASP system is much better than a flat BR increase to the game itself. And I'm looking forward to actually playing with it. But as you can hear, my voice is getting worse, not better. So that is going to be it for this week's show. Surprisingly, I still went long. I don't know how I did it. Actually, you guys don't know this, but basically I've been recording for the past 2 hours because I have to keep pausing between segments, go upstairs, make a fresh cup of tea, and then hack up a lung and do stuff like that. So this has been the longest recording session ever. But again, like I said, That's it for this week's show. Hopefully I feel better next week, but how can you get in touch with me or the show if you need to? As always, best place, my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. You can send me an email like Louis did, instantactionshow@gmail.com. You can call me or leave me a voicemail, 347-4VM4PS2, or that's 347-486-4772. Follow the show's Twitter @InstActPodcast, or follow me on Twitter @TheDerringer. But in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfits mates about the show. And finally, thank you for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.
Get your arms combined.